Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm just getting, here we go. Hello, welcome to our first IG Live to kick off Gap Year Exploration Month. I'm so excited. My name is Jazz, and I am the community manager here at Canadian Gap Year Association. And my role is literally to be here to support you in this incredible journey from deciding on a gap year to planning a gap year to leading a gap year and getting ready for those next steps, whether that's post-secondary or launching right into your big, beautiful career. Today's a really exciting day because not only are we kicking off Gap Year Exploration Month, we're also kicking off the Lunar New Year and Black History Month. So it's this absolutely powerful and incredible time to be coming together as a community, and I hope it brings us a lot more positivity and energy to kind of re-kick off 2022, because it seems like January was a little bit of a bumpy start, but I know that with all this great energy, especially what we're going to be throwing at you all month long, I'm so excited. And we've got tons lined up for the month. So everything from weekly IG lives, I'm going to be meeting with incredible gappers who are currently just doing incredible things, but also have so much value to share around the hardships and some of the challenges that you'll actually end up facing in your gap year. Because let's be honest, nothing always goes to exactly how we expect it to. So it's super important that we actually take this time to be intentional and learn from people who are doing it, who are in it, and how they're making it amazing and purposeful. And then we're also going to be chatting with different gap year program partners, so you can get to know more about what options are available to you for this year and beyond. So whether you're planning a 2022 gap year or a 2023 gap year or a mix of both, where you're going into the 2022-2023 school year. Wow, that's a lot of 2020 things to say. And we also have weekly events going on, starting with this Saturday with our Gap Year Expo. So that's going to be an awesome way to kick it off. There's tons of workshops, awesome panel with our Gap Year alum. It's such a great opportunity to really understand all the moving pieces of what makes up an amazing gap year and how to get started. And that's where we support you. And today I'm so excited to invite in Claire, one of our amazing CanGap ambassadors. She's also the manager of our incredible Gapper Connect Discord, which is a nationwide virtual community of gappers across Canada, not just gappers, but students and alums, so that there's this beautiful connection happening within there around kind of wherever you are in your gap year phase. Everyone's there to support you, and Claire basically runs all of the pieces with me there. She's also going to be tuning in from England, where she's currently spending her gap year. So today we're going to be diving into a little bit about what it takes to kind of make the gap year decision, and then kind of all of the bumps along the way as we think about how do we actually plan it and make it come to life. So I believe Claire is already here. I'm going to invite her in. Awesome. Just takes a moment, I believe, to get her up on the screen. Just give me a moment. There we go. Hi, Claire. How are you?
Good, how are you? It's great to be here.
Oh, it's nice to go live together. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, happy Gap Year Exploration Month, happy Lunar New Year, happy Black History Month. I was just sharing how it actually ends up being one of the coolest days, I think, of the year already, with so many amazing things happening in Feb. Where are you? Where are you tuning in from? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into some of the awesome things that you've been up to throughout your gap year.
Yeah, sure. So I'm tuning in from Warrington, England right now. It's a little town in between like Liverpool and Manchester in England. Well, I guess in the UK, I said that already. But yeah, I'm basically a gap year student this year. I decided to take a gap year after graduating from high school last year. And yeah, this past year, I've just kind of been exploring, learning about myself a bit more, and doing lots of cool things. So
That's beautiful. And I'm curious, so at what point in your high school journey were you introduced to the concept of a gap year?
yeah, so it's always kind of been at the beginning of like high school, I had heard about it but didn't really know about it too much. And it was actually at a little expo at our school that actually brought in, I believe it was the Canadian Gap Year Association, and kind of that idea of taking a year off to kind of find yourself was kind of presented to me, and I think that was in grade 11 or 12, and it just kind of was something that resonated with me at the time. Like I hadn't fully committed to the idea then, but it was definitely something that was like, wow, like that sounds like something that I might want to do if I decide that like I don't want to go to university right away.
Awesome. So it was a little bit earlier in your journey. So you had it kind of as an option out there.
Yeah.
And, once you got to 11th, 12th grade, like what was it that made you decide, like, I'm definitely going for a gap year over going right into college or uni?
Yeah, so there were definitely a couple of factors that kind of influenced my like decision to take a gap year. So one of them, absolutely, everyone knows that there's been a pandemic this past 2 years, and that was something that when it came to like learning and when it came to like growing in education, I felt like I needed to take kind of a break and a step back from it. Because like as a learner, I just found it really difficult to be like kind of transitioning structures of education every single time there was another like lockdown, and I wanted to have a bit more stability when it came to starting university. And so taking that year off and just kind of sitting back and seeing how the pandemic played itself out, and having the opportunity to kind of go into university with a bit more like of a solid idea of what it would look like was definitely a big push for me. um, Another reason why I decided to take a gap year was I just wanted, more time to figure out like who I was. I felt like maybe traditional like education hadn't given me the opportunity to kind of develop myself in a very like well-rounded way. And I wanted time to explore, and I wanted time to be like, hey, like this is me, I'm Claire, like this is what I want to do with my life. And so taking that time to like have this year has been really really helpful so far, and it was definitely one of the push factors. And yeah, another thing is that um I'm actually taking a gap year with my boyfriend. And so, because we were both taking that gap year at the same time, it just kind of lined up really well that it was a good time to take a year off education.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many valid and totally and just incredible reasons to take a gap year in there. So one, having this intentional time to discover more about who you are, because we're in school our entire life
Yeah,
until we get up to grade 12. Basically, that's all we know. So to have that intentional time to really understand and explore ourselves outside of the classroom is huge. And like, kudos to you for being able to identify that, because so many students struggle with that. And then, we get into post-secondary and there's like a lack of self-awareness and a lack of self-care. And those are two huge things that we need when we're putting ourselves in a more academically stressful environment. So that's
definitely.
huge. That's huge. And I think the other thing there that you mentioned around the pandemic and like uncertainty, I think, one of the biggest things I keep also hearing from students currently is like, should I take a gap year if there's a pandemic? And I think one of the biggest reasons that you just mentioned is really like, if when you don't get that first year post-secondary experience,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, just the like building your community, or having that experience of being on campus and going to different classes and all the different student experiences that you have and are, that I'm also so grateful for having in my post-secondary journey. Like, to think about not being able to experience those is heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
building community virtually is already hard enough, especially when a university has like 100,000 students in it. How do you find the right people to connect with? So that's huge. And then I'm also hearing you and your boyfriend also were able to kind of align up your year and do this incredible gap year experience together.
Right.
Now, was it always going to be a travel based gap year? Like, why England? Where did the travel aspect come in?
Yeah, so I chose England for a couple of reasons. I think the primary one was definitely that David, my boyfriend, already lived here. But the other reason that we didn't choose to, have him come to Canada was because it was particularly easy to um, get a work visa for the UK, and yeah, I just found it like it we like kind of just looked at all the logistics and what we wanted out of our gap years, and one of the big ones was to be able to work and travel and kind of flip-flop between the two throughout our year. And so just England became a really good place, like geographically, with Europe right next to it, and all the travel experiences and opportunities there,
Yeah.
um, well as just having the opportunity to get that visa, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But yeah, that was a big pull factor as well.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious. So, a working and traveling gap year. So, we obviously are partnered with International Experience Canada, who supports students and actually, especially gap year students, in getting all of their
Mm-hmm.
work permits and everything sorted before they travel, and they're eligible for what, like up to like 33 different countries. So, from my understanding, you didn't know that
No,
resource is
I, I
available.
I didn't know that International Experience Canada existed, but now I do, and I wish I had used them because honestly, it was quite stressful trying to get especially during the pandemic, trying to get the Tier 5 youth visa without someone to help you. There was lots of different yeah, lots of places where I could maybe fall through on the application that I would have liked some help with. So it's good to know that they exist and they'll definitely help you, because it's such a cool opportunity just to be able to get that visa and just be able to work in that place now. You can just go travel to it and just have that peace of mind that you can be there for 2 years if you wanted to. So
That's amazing. And so, with the work visa that you have, are you able to work wherever you want, or are there like specific restrictions around kind of industries or how long you need to be with a company?
yeah, so actually the visa was pretty open-ended. I cannot be a doctor, which I don't think anyone would want that because I'm not trained. And the other thing is I can't be a sports coach because I don't have the specific qualifications. But for me, they're very small sectors which you can't work in with the visa that need clear qualifications. Um, but yeah, it's pretty open-ended, honestly, and I would say yeah, you don't need to have a job offer before. So I went in with no job offer and just, um, yeah, so it's very, very open ended.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I understand that you've also gotten to explore a little bit more of Europe while you've been there. And, I'd love for you to share what you have been up to because some of the opportunities that you've taken up are just so amazing and totally things that I love doing when I finished high school. But I'm also curious to share if you can share your experience, but also what it's been like traveling in the pandemic, because I know that's a big question mark for a lot of I know you can't give like very specific like restriction or guidelines, don't worry about that, just overall experience in terms of how you've been able to keep safe and still have a great time and really build these beautiful memories for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the biggest travel that I've done this so far this year, because we have the majority of it scheduled for the spring and probably into the summer, but David and I went to France. I couldn't remember the country. We went to France, no, October and November for a month doing a work away, and that's essentially where you do a bit of work every day in return for lodging and food. So that was a really cool experience, and we also beforehand we had planned to travel around France by train, just kind of leading up to our work away, which I thought was really nice. Um, to be honest, the travel restrictions are, when you look at them on paper, they're very worrying and they're very stressful. And I think definitely earlier this year it was a lot more restrictive. I know currently where I am in England, their restrictions have definitely eased up a bunch. You don't need, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't need a lot of the tests that you needed to come back into the country, which was a really big barrier. I believe you still need them for Canada, but it's definitely, yeah, I think in terms of like overall with travel restrictions, um, the most difficult part was just kind of looking at each specific country and trying to figure out like whether or not we could travel there. And then, you know, it has made like spontaneity, I guess, a lot more difficult because, you know, you can't just get on a plane. You have to like research all about that country and, you know, figure out whether or not you can travel there and whether or not you need to quarantine. But it definitely is doable if you just research and weigh your options. And yeah.
Yeah, it seems like as long as we're on top of it when it comes to changes in restrictions, changes to guidelines, we're on it. Like I was actually supposed to be in Canada already from where I live here in India, but guidelines changed when I got to the airport and
Oh,
it completely disrupted the flight. Um, all good, but I think that's just another note that always make sure you're checking restrictions and guidelines. But I think it's so powerful for you to share that like travel is possible and a traveling gap year in a pandemic is still possible. We just have to be super mindful and be on top of our risk assessments and risk management.
oh,
Um,
yeah, and the other thing is you don't need to travel only like internationally. There's so many places in any country that you live in where there's an opportunity to see something new. And I'm excited as well to just explore more of England. So, yeah.
yeah, and I think that's a really good point too. The fact that as like a proud Canadian who has traveled so much of the world, I get so upset with myself that I've not spent more time exploring Canada. Like our country is so beautiful and so wide and so diverse. And yet when we immediately think gap year, we think like, oh, I can go to Australia, I can go to
Mhm.
England, I can go to Europe. And if there's restrictions in the way and you know if traveling abroad for your gap year is maybe not something that you're comfortable with or your family is comfortable with, traveling across Canada, there's so much opportunity
Definitely.
and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm but thank you for sharing that. And I what did you work on again when you did the workaway? I believe you did some like landscaping or some work, like something
Yeah,
really cool.
we actually were helping someone basically redo their home to make it environmentally friendly. So we were digging up a basement floor and then replacing the basement floor with concrete and also putting like underfloor heating and learning how to use like an air source heat pump, which is like basically like the air comes into like the air. I'm not really exactly sure how it works, but it's an environmentally friendly way, basically, of heating up a house and making it insulated and more um, efficient for the environment.
That's a cool project to work on. Like, that, and it's so funny because sometimes we do these types of projects and we don't think twice of them. But like, maybe in 10 years from now, you're like the leading eco architect of Canada. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even realize how some of these small projects can play such a big role on our interests and passions. And having our gap year to explore all of these cool things, especially in a different country, is amazing. So,
Yeah, it actually inspired David and I to redo the floor in our bedroom on our own. So it definitely already had an impact, which has been fun.
that's awesome. It also sounds like you're having quite a hands-on gap year. And I think that's like such a big piece of the gap year experience is like how can we get our hands in actual projects that are real and happening and learn from those that journey, that experience. And I understand that you're working on creating different products from resin. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm making like I'm working on my business, which is like making tabletops and coasters. It's basically like a resin material, but I'm like super excited to be doing it because it's like starting a business has always been something that's kind of been in like the back of my mind, like, hey, after like school is over, you can start your business and like I'm just so excited to be working on it because it's a type of art that like I enjoy doing and I um have also been enjoying like looking at the more business side of it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's nice when you, I mean, sometimes it's not always nice, but when you have to step back and look at the business side and not just the creative side, it blows your mind because
It
it
does.
all comes together and it's so important to do all these pieces. And, um, just to kind of like bring us back a step, there's so many incredible things that you've been able to do and experience throughout your year so far, because we're still in the midst. But I'm curious, as you've traveled and are finding work abroad and working on your own business and, trying to meet people in a pandemic when you're in a new country, like what have been some of the bigger challenges or barriers that you've found you've faced over the last kind of couple months in your gap year?
Yeah, so I think one of the big barriers that has stood out to me is just like isolation with my gap year. I felt this at the end of like high school, just with the pandemic. It was really hard to like, just get kind of closure with high school, and then moving out of high school into, the big world. It's just like I feel like it's been difficult, like, initially not really having a community to share my experiences with. Yeah, I think the two things are like very much isolation and lack of structure when it comes to just the gap year. I think the two things that have really helped my struggles have, first of all, basically been building a community for gap year students. I felt like it's really nice to be a part of the gap year game plan, just because there's so many incredible people taking a gap year in it that are able to like help me kind of, just not only connect like on a kind of professional level because we're all taking gap years, but also just, be your friend, and kind of connect over a shared interest. And yeah, so that's another reason why I'm really passionate about Gapper Connect. And yeah, the other thing I mentioned was the lack of structure briefly. I think that this is something that like as a gap year student, like you kind of lose from school. Like, in school you're all like, oh, it's time to wake up and now it's time to go to classes and do this, this, and this, and then have the end of your day and then work on your homework. So very much like I think building that structure for yourself over your gap year has been something that I've had to learn. And this is through like accountability buddies, as well as checking in with people really, and kind of setting a schedule for myself and kind of building up frameworks that help me stay organized within the context of this year.
Beautiful. So it sounds like you identified those challenges quite early on and then immediately started working to overcome them. So that's amazing. So community building, 100%. I think I always find, like maybe it sounds nerdy to say this, but all of my friends agree. Once you leave high school, it's actually very hard to like find people that are like-minded, build long-term kind of relationships with them and really build a community because your whole life you're just in like one classroom or one building and you're meeting the same people every single day, and it's so easy to kind of work around that, but once you are in a gap year or finish post-secondary and you're out there in the world and you have to build your own community, you have to be really intentional about it. And I agree, that's why I love Gapper Connect as well. I think it's such a great space for not just students who are on a gap year or any gappers who are experiencing their gap year to build community, but students who are considering a gap year or want to learn a little bit more about what it looks like for alum to stay in touch with those on gap years. Because every kind of like when you're in university, or college, like you do end up making friends that are all different age groups. You really do. And I think that's like the beauty of bringing more diversity into your friend group because everyone has different experiences to share. And I think that's what's great about Gapper Connect as well, because you see a lot of that peer-to-peer, experience sharing, connection, and then also people like making plans. Like I think I saw you in there actually chatting with someone who's going over to Europe sometime soon, and I was like, that's amazing. Like you never know who you could meet. That could be your next travel buddy or your next
Exactly. Yeah.
co-founder or something in there. So it's so great. And as for structure, I totally resonate with that. And I mean, Yeah, and that's another reason why the game plan I think is so it is so great for that, because
Yeah.
we're not gonna sit there and pressure you to like go through and accomplish your goals. Like, this is very much about you learning to be accountable for yourself, and in that journey, finding the right people to connect with, to hold you accountable, and to have people that you can connect with, whether it's me or Michelle or any of your peers, to chat about like where you're at, where you're stuck, and together kind of as a community overcome these challenges. And it's been so beautiful to just see that in our Gapper Connect and in our game plan program. And I'm excited for this month because in game plan we're working on project management, and I know that you will love what we're working on this month because it's super aligned with all the things that you're working on with your business. So that's really, really exciting. And so this month, Claire is actually our Discord manager. So she oversees like all the goodness, all the fun activities. She's in charge of all the giveaways for this month. And we have tons of giveaways, not just from CanGap, but from all of our incredible Gap Year program partners. So, Claire, what can some newbies joining the Gapper Connect group this month? What can they expect? What do we got planned in there this month?
Yeah, so this month on Gap Year, back in Gapper Connect Discord, there's going to be tons of different giveaways, like you said, Jazz. I know that there's going to be a couple travel vouchers, some mugs, and some very cool tote bags and things. So definitely keep a lookout for that. The other thing is there's going to be a lot of the giveaways are going to be like chat based, so just to encourage conversation about your gap year. You can basically enter the giveaway just by chatting and responding to some questions about your gap year or your plan to have a gap year. So yeah, I think that's really exciting, and it's super easy to enter them just by joining Gapper Connect and having a little conversation.
Yeah. And the link to access and to get access to our Discord, you can either jump over to our link in bio or just jump over to cangap.ca/Gapper Connect. So Gapper is GAPPER Connect. If you haven't noticed by now, Gappers are what we call gap year students. So once you're on a gap year, you're officially a gap year, a Gapper, sorry, and join that awesome little title of yeah, it's like an official exclusive title of being a gap year student. Makes you sound really official. Awesome. Well, we're actually going to be giving away a prize for just being part of this conversation today, joining Claire and I, celebrating the launch of Gap Year Exploration Month. And we're going to be giving away a cozy little mug from our partner, Where There Be Dragons. And we're going to be giving you all the details in our Gapper Connect Discord, and we'll be giving that away later this week. But in order to access it, you have to join the Discord. So again, you can jump over to the link in bio. For those watching after this, if you're watching this after we've already gone live, the link is in the description. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you all in there. Claire's going to be kind of leading. Awesome. Claire's going to be leading awesome, like different discussions throughout the week to kind of not just encourage, but also to support you and letting you know that you're not alone in this journey. There are so many other individuals, possibly in your hometown, your home city, on the other side of the country, possibly another country, who is going through the exact same thing you're going through in terms of if the gap year is right for you and what you want to make of it and what kind of goals and what is it going to look like. This is a great space to put all those puzzle pieces together and bring that vision of your gap year all together in one piece and look at it and get excited, and then we'll give you all the pieces you need to get that make that a reality. So Claire, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's evening for us. It's still morning and everyone in Canada. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone for listening in. And if you want to connect again with Claire and learn more about her journey, ask questions, she's in there in Gapper Connect. Happy to always provide insight. Thank you, Claire. You're like a wizard in there. It's awesome. Fabulous. Well, thank you again. Claire, I'll let you go and you can wrap up the rest of your evening. It's late over here in India, and I'll see you soon on Discord.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, I'll see you guys over on Discord. Thanks for the chat today, Jazz. It was lovely. So yeah.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. And I know everyone else does. Everyone else, we'll meet you in Gapper Connect, and thank you so much for tuning in. We actually have different lives going on every week. So next Tuesday, I'm going to be chatting with CanGap Ambassador Rena, who's spending her gap year in Japan. And I'm actually going to be sharing a little teaser of all the things she's up to on Reels later this week. And throughout the month, I'm also going to be inviting Michelle, our co-founder and president, to meet with me to chat more about our educator-focused or facing programs and workshops that support our amazing educators across Canada, teachers, guidance counselors, coaches, all of you amazing people who've helped shape our lives so much. We want to make sure that you have the information you need to support us gappers and our journey. What I would have done to have a guidance counselor who could have told me that a gap year was an option and how to make the most of it. So if you want to be that guidance counselor, that amazing teacher that supports that gap year student and just making the next year of their life unbelievable and sets them up for their beautiful future, jump over to cangap.ca/PD. That's PD for professional development. You can learn more about that program, but that's just a teaser. So stay tuned. Make sure you're following us. Turn those alerts on so that you can join us for our lives every Tuesday. And thank you again for joining. Have a lovely Tuesday.